Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Ahlulbayt TV. This is an Ahlulbayt live special. Of course, we have decided to air this particular show so that we can find out as much as we can in this hour from our guest with regards to the sad events that, tragic events that transpired over the weekend and even early into this week as well in the northern part of Nigeria. I'm sure many of our viewers have been kept up to date with information on social media, on the internet. Of course, the problem with that is a lot of the information that has been received has been contradictory. Some of it is true, some of it is not true. A lot of the information has been very difficult to verify, to that end, alhamdulillah, we have somebody who has been on the ground in Nigeria just last year, and of course is very close to Sheikh Zakzaky, and has of course been in contact with many people over there, as well as other people around the world. And so inshallah we'll use this hour to try and gain as much knowledge from him as possible. Of course, many of you will know him from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. It's Masood Shajari, who alhamdulillah is with us this evening. Thank you very much, Al-Hajj, for being here tonight. Of course, I know that you have known Sheikh Zakzaky for a long time. Unfortunately for many of our viewers, at least here in the West, they're only hearing about him for the first time because of the tragic events over the last few days. In fact, I think the very first time I met him actually was due to a conference that you were chairing here in London. Could you maybe give us an overview of the personality who is Sheikh Zakzaky, and of course the Islamic movement of Nigeria as well?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You're right, I've known him for a very long time. When we both were much younger. He's actually younger than myself. I'm a few years more senior than him. I got to know Sheikh Zakzaky when he was at the university, and he was the leader of the Muslim youth and university students. And even at that time, he was always, his khutbahs every Jum'ah, he was giving khutbahs at the university, and they were very colorful khutbahs, and he was challenging injustice. And then he was also very much affected by the Islamic revolution. He was a revolutionary. He sort of understood Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi's message that what we need to challenge is the Taghut, and is not sort of the glitters that needs to be changed, or people needs to be changed. The system needs to be changed, and we need to go for justice, and we need to go. And he was always involved in those type of promotion, and we used to invite him quite a lot to Britain for conferences, for programs at Cambridge University and so forth, and he was always coming, and he was always so colorful, and so mashallah, Allah has given him ability to actually speak the truth and do it with a sort of very charismatic sort of way, and he has used it very well. And then as time went, he got into trouble with the authorities, and that was only natural. And then he ended up going to prison a number of times, I think 5 or 6 times. And when you look at his children, the gaps between the ages of children is actually a time that he was in prison. And then the last time he went into prison was at the time of Abuja. And they wanted to kill him. They actually was going to poison him. Abacha, yes. And we did a very sort of extensive campaign, which eventually that campaign resulted in him being released. And 4 of them were in prison at the time, and then 1,000 people were taken into prison. So whole of the top of the movement was in prison. Then they took wife and children, and one of the young men who later on last year, a year and a half ago, became Shaheed, he was only 4 months old, and he was ill, and he was in prison, and there was no medicine, and even food for prisoners in Nigeria, you actually have to provide the food from outside. All the families and all the movement were in there, so even that was a challenge. And he came out, and every time he went to prison and he came out, he sort of restated that the only solution is an Islamatization, and he actually, the reason he was put in prison last time was because he made a speech and he said the governance, the leadership is only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, permission of Allah. Without that, there is no legitimacy. And so the government took the position that since we are not in that position, what you're saying is treason. He said, what do you want to say? This is the position. Even at that time, Muhammad, which is his oldest son, they wanted to assassinate him. So we brought him to London, and he was staying with us and going to Ahlulbayt school for a few years to protect him until the matter is resolved. But he moved forward and forward, that sort of student movement, with his hard work, really, and others as well. But he is the leadership figure. It's now, when I went last time, the conservative estimate is that the movement is got 15 million members, and he's got 5 million outside who support him. Aspects of the, we're talking about 20 million, and 20 million of not those who are actually giving £1 a week or so, because membership means different things to different people. These guys are committed. When they're attacked, they don't run. They do run, but they run the other way. They run, and armed only by shouting Allahu Akbar and Ya Mahdi, they go forward. And we come to how that resulted in what happened recently. But I've seen in the demonstration and so forth, with the footage and everything, when they were attacked, to protect others, these guys went forward. They became Shaheed. 32 of them. But they protected everybody else. 3 of his own children. And when I went, and I actually had to go because we are so close, and I just couldn't think that I should not go on a personal level to see him, but also to go and investigate, to actually put on record what has taken place. Don't allow the army to get away with it, and expose the truth. And when I was down there and talking to him and Muallima, his wife, I interviewed Muallima. Muallima said, they brought the 3 sons. These sons one of them was killed on sight, 2 of them were taken away, shot after arrest, and left bleeding to death. And they were tortured while in that process. We got evidence and everything, footage and testimonies and everything. And she knew all that. And then she said that I insisted that she should do the ghusl on them and stay all night with them. And she didn't allow anybody else coming, because she said, I don't want anybody to cry. This is and the 2 children, 2 of them had fiancés waiting to get married. And the conversation they had with their fiancés before, they actually basically told their fiancés that we are going, and we leave you in hand of Allah.
Subhanallah. Yes, I would like to just talk a little bit more about this visit that you paid last year, and if there were any results thereof. But before we do, just to maybe illustrate some of the points that Brother Mas'ud has mentioned about the size of the movement, we have just a short video clip footage of some of the Arba'in processions this year for you to see the numbers, alhamdulillah, of the movement in northern Nigeria.
سيد الورى علي حيدر يوشي كيكيرا يتبدي مكيرا يوشي عاشورا ديني يقرارا سيد الورى أبدا والله يا زهرا بمبنت حسينا أبدا والله يا زهرا بمبنت حسينا.
Alhamdulillah, so there you have it. Of
Can
course.
I say something?
Yes, please.
This is when people from weeks before, from all over Nigeria, start walking towards Zaire, and the place that you saw is actually next to the Husseiniya, and there is no way that you could look at this and actually recognize the size. The only way you could actually see is if you actually have a bird's eye view.
Right.
There are 5 million people gathered there. 5 million. This is how we actually calculate that not everybody could obviously come. And it's huge. And this year there was a bomb by Boko Haram or some Takfiri elements. And even though the bomb took place, people died, became shaheed, people got injured, but within 1 hour, the procession continued. They actually looked after those who are injured and so forth, but the procession wasn't stopped. The commitment is something unbelievable.
Subhanallah. Going back to this visit that you paid to Sheikh Zakzaky last year and the investigation that you undertook, from my understanding, there weren't any, dare I say, world-renowned organizations that have been allowed, as far as I'm aware, to conduct any independent inquiries into what happened. Why seemingly did everything go so quiet afterwards, and why has there not been more of an uproar?
Well, international community sort of is not doing much for any sort of look at Myanmar, and it's not an issue that these are Shias or not. There really is no caring for Muslims. There is no caring for people who have got a darker skin, and there is no caring for people, definitely, who are challenging the injustices of colonial legacies, which has, which is destroying the economical, social, and moral fabric, not just Africa but everywhere else. And so, from that point of view, we understand. But on top of that, last June, there is a WikiLeaks that actually shows Saudi Arabia. These are official documents from their embassies, putting pressure and saying that Nigeria should be cleansed of these people.
How do you cleanse a country of that many?
Well, here you go and commit a massacre and kill 1,000 and more, and then you take the leader and torture it in that way that we are saying. That's how they think they could do it. Zalimin have been doing that for a long time. What we saw in the last weekend, it was nothing short of Karbala. Nothing short than that. And both from the commitment of those people who went in there, and also the brutality which was unleashed. But what we went with a sort of open mind to sort of investigate and see what's going on. We collected testimonies, we collected footage, we analyzed it with the experts and so forth. And it was obvious, and it is even the case now, that the army went with the purpose of killing. Processions of Al-Quds was already finished. Dua for end of the thing was done, and people were going away, that they attacked the end part of the procession, and when they were firing, and we had footage of it and everything, soldiers, professional soldiers, they weren't taking sort of any care of hiding behind the barrier. They were standing up and shooting because they knew nobody is going to hurt them. Nobody has got the guns to throw or shoot at them. It was just like a pigeon shooting. They're just standing there, people with nothing in their hand, and only thing people were shouting was Allahu Akbar, Ya Mahdi, Ya Mahdi. And when they were shooting, they were going down, but then they get up and go forward. There's not enough time to go to all the details, but
sure.
We've done a documentary, and people should actually look at that. It actually proves, what has taken place with the footage, with the testimonies and so forth. But that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the movement itself.
Sure.
Every night in the house of Muallim, around sort of 100, 200 people will come to give condolences. Among them, archbishops. Among them, Salafis. Among them, ordinary Christian. The conflict in Nigeria between Christian and Muslim is probably one of the worst in Africa. But these people were coming to give condolences. And and I was quite surprised. So I did interviews on top of the interviewing parents of those who become shaheed and so forth. I interviewed those two Christian ladies who came as neighbors. I said, look, I've known and I know of the conflict here.
Sure.
And why have you come here? And she said, we live in this neighborhood. He said every time there is a conflict and between Muslim and Christians where people actually going and killing one another and so forth, Muallim sends people to guard our house 24 hours to make sure we are safe. Now, this is implementation of Islam Muhammadi. This is what I believe that the Prophet ﷺ would have done. Not sitting down and having an interfaith by a bunch of criminals, but actually looking after people because they're human. What Hazrat Ali alayhi salam said to Malik Ashtar, when you go down there, be careful. Either they are brothers of yours in deen, or they're your equals in humanity. To implement that is what is important. And the fact and the reason that this movement is growing so rapidly and becoming such a danger is really exactly that. And I think we need to learn the lesson from this aspect.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can we move on to the tragic events which took place over this weekend? Before we actually talk about what happened and the motivations, or what you consider to be the possible motivations for the actions of the army against unarmed civilians, from what I can gather, from what I've so far investigated, do we know at this stage exactly what caused this confrontation to happen?
Okay, we were involved as the whole thing was unleashing, and the first information we received with the footage was that the army personnel, in quite a large numbers, are coming and taking position around Husseiniya. And we got these photographs of them almost surrounding and taking position. But it's not a conflict, because people are walking around, ordinary people walking around. It's not that, there is a conflict between them and so forth. The shooting and the conflict started about an hour and a half or 2 hours after this positioning. So the version of the armed forces, which at first they said was assassination of the general, and then they changed it into, they said that it wasn't assassination, but it was just a traffic incident. It doesn't tally with those photographs. And then after that, the shooting started. And even when you look at the position of shooting, again, the soldiers are in the field without, having to take any sort of precaution, are actually just shooting. And this continued, and within few hours, then we saw the second front, armies and tanks going to residential area and starting shooting there, residential area near the house of Muallim Zakzaky.
So this, because of course there are a number of different stories going around, but the one that seems to be gaining the most prominence is the one that there was a convoy. The Lieutenant General, apparently, according to one version of events, was on his way to a military ceremony. Then the streets were blocked by a number of the youth from the movement. And then there was this discussion trying to get them to move. They weren't prepared to move. And apparently one of the reasons why the barricade was there, one, because they needed to protect themselves from potential suicide bombers like the one a couple of weeks ago, but also because on Friday, I don't know if you heard, apparently 3 brothers from the movement had been killed when they'd gone to pray.
Actually, at that time there was 2 events taking place. One was the sort of preparation for these brothers who died, the consuls and so forth. And that day they were going to have a program of bringing the black flags down and putting the red and the green flag up at the end of the sort of and these 2 things. But you see, that version that they're coming, you don't send hundreds of soldiers to actually take position because you want to go through. That doesn't tally. So the fact that they were there before means that there was a preparation for something very devious, and the fact that they went to the house, it shows that there is, it was well planned to actually kill as many and then kill and destroy the whole movement.
Okay, well, as we mentioned, very tragic events. Inshallah, when we come back after the break, we'll ask Brother Al-Hajj Masood Chowdhury to analyze the events in more detail. Please join us after the break. We'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Ahlulbayt live special, discussing the events which took place in northern Nigeria over the weekend. Yes, inshallah, we need to, as I mentioned, get some more information from our guest Al-Hajj Masood Chowdhury, who is I'm not actually sure what the correct title is.
I'm the chair of Islamic
of the Islamic Human Rights Commission. Thank you very much indeed. But before we do, and please forgive me in advance, it's quite a graphic video, but just to maybe highlight the extent of the massacre, and of course maybe afterwards we'll talk about the numbers or the difficulty of trying to verify the numbers of casualties and fatalities. But again, just here's a quick video. Again, be warned that it is quite graphic. Okay, so this unfortunately this video doesn't have any sound. So I mean, I believe this was
it's one of the videos that we released, and most of the photographs and things we released. The significance of this video is that what you see in the front on the other side of the street is the residence of Muallim. But it's more than residence. It's actually a mosque as well. People gather all the time. There's this really, it's bubbling away, and on the side there is sort of a road that leads to this, and that road has got two security blocks, which you actually need to go through, slow down and go through it. And the brothers were protecting Muallim all the way. I mean, it actually took something like 7 or 8 hours for well-armed soldiers coming through and managing to reach the house, because people were coming in front and getting shot and actually challenging. And but that, when you see that footage now, is the significance of it is that at that time they invaded inside the house, and what you hear, what the sound wasn't gunshots. They were going in, just taking pot shots at people, and what consequence photographs shows outside there piles of body of young men, and then really people were actually putting themselves in front of Sheikh not to be shot at, and they were coming to do that, and that's why we got a tremendous amount of shuhada. I was in contact with Sheikh's house himself, his wife, and one of the brothers who studied here, and went back. And for example, I arranged for the last interview of Sheikh with the press TV, and after that the Sheikh told me I won't do any more prayers because they were coming very near, any more interviews. I'm going to go into my room and prepare myself and do du'as. And the brother who I was in contact with, the last time I talked to him, I was calling him every sort of half an hour and so forth to get updates of what's going on. But they were coming very near. They were outside. There were tanks either side, and it was imminent that they would go in. I said, "Can any of you get out?" And he said, "No, we are here to be shield of Sheikh." And he wasn't even in the town when he found out this happening. He rushed, drove fast, and went with his wife and children into the house. And when I told him I tried to call in half an hour, he said, "Brother, I think next time we talk or we meet, we'll be in Jannah, inshallah." And I haven't heard anything regarding him. And they went in, now we know they went in, they shot the whole family. Muallima has been shot in the stomach, Sheikh has been shot in the shoulder, but we've seen those photographs, I think many people have seen that he's been tortured tremendously badly. And they kept them in that burned out house for 24 hours without any medical attention, nothing. And when we find out, we put pressure, and they then took them to barracks. From barracks, then they said they were taking them to hospital. They have announced that they've taken them to hospital, but to be honest, they're so brutal. We know what they did to the 3 children of Sheikh. They shot them, tortured them to death in front of the 4th son, who had his leg shot at and shattered. A 14-year-old.
Is this the same 14-year-old who?
He is in there. We actually don't have information that he's we have information that he's been shot, but nothing more. And the daughter, one of the daughters, has been shot. You see, the point here is that, you know, these people are committed. You know, wallahi, I was thinking, you know, we all claim that we are Mu'min, you know, we go to Hajj once a year and we think, you know, we've done it all, you know. But that sort of commitment. You know, Muallim, when they killed 3 of his sons, I mean, you know, many of us are parents. What do you do if you lose 3 of your sons? Deliberately, they actually torture them to death. And you got a leadership of 15 million people. He did not promote a single act of violence. Not a single. And you know, even they come and they killed. I mean, we now know that at least 1,000 people have died. I'm not saying this out of the hat. You know, we have checked with the hospitals. One hospital alone, which took the shuhada from the Husseiniya, got over 300 bodies in there. And then others, and what happened around his house was much more death. You know, because people were rushing to protect him. And now we have evidence. We actually have credible evidence. Today we receive credible evidence that they are doing mass graves to actually hide the numbers. They also taking the clothes of the Mu'mineen out and putting uniform to actually say these are some of them are soldiers. And some of the bodies have been mutilated, especially sisters on their private parts. This is not an army. This is thugs which have been given power to do whatever they want. Impunity to do whatever they want. And this is why Sheikh always said that Boko Haram is actually the army. He always said that. And you know what we are, and what happened today? His house has been bulldozed. Husseiniya has been bulldozed. You know, these, if they are really truthful, these are evidences that are getting rid of. They are deliberately getting rid of all the evidence.
But explain to us, how could it be possible for human beings, an army ostensibly is there to protect the civilians of a country, how and why would they massacre is even too kind a word. Why would they ransack and ravage, and I can't even think of the words.
This is not the first time.
How?
You know, this is not the first time. There was a footage of Nigerian army going on a ransack in a town in north, accusing the whole town or part of the town to be Boko Haram. And they were going in the square, grabbing people, putting them down, people with no gun, nothing, putting them down and putting the gun on the back of their head and shooting it. You know, Nigerian forces are known for brutality and abuses like that. And actually we need to ask a question. Why is it that the Nigerian army is then sent as a peacekeepers around the world to keep peace if they're doing this to their own people? And today what they did, thousands of people were out in Kaduna demonstrating for freeing Sheikh Zakzaky and asking to have access to all the prisoners and those who are injured. The army comes and opens fire. 4 people become shaheed, 30 people have been injured. The Human Rights Organization of Nigeria have actually given a statement condemning this brutal killing. It's not, you know, a bunch of, Islamicists are saying these things. This is brutality at its worst, and it's there to actually destroy. No, you know, some people say destroy the Shia community. Look, these people are not being attacked because they're putting their hands down or hands up. There is at least 20% of followers of Muallim who are all called Omar and Abu Bakr and so forth. It's still, you know, the brother I'm talking about, I was in contact, his name is Omar. And he's been there and he's been actually he's actually also been Shia for a very long time, but he has kept that because they don't have this hang up that the rest of us got. But they got a hang up over issue of behavior, behaving as a Muslim who believes in Islam Muhammadi or not. And the fact that Muallim is so popular, challenging the injustices, challenging the corruption, putting forward the only solution, rather than one donkey goes, another donkey comes as a president. One Christian, one Muslim, one Christian, one Muslim, one Christian, like a musical chair. He's actually putting real solution, and people believe in him. They believe in his integrity because they see that his own children died for the cause. And as Mazloom, I was talking to one politician, which I know through UN activity. And he was saying that those politicians who live in the area which his brothers live, there was a conflict and people were going for politicians and were going to their houses and destroying their houses and looting and so forth. He said they did that everywhere except where Muallim has got influence. He did not allow a single politician to be attacked. Although he's got nothing to do with politicians, actually he doesn't believe in that sort of political party. But he's a human being and he believes in humanity. And this is why we need to understand this. We need to understand this, that if this happens anywhere else, first of all, it won't happen because we are all will be quite happy to compromise in all sorts of ways with politicians, with Taghut and everything. But this is happening here because the Zalimeen know that this is very powerful. What Muallim is doing is very powerful. It's as powerful as what Imam Hussein is saying. And I remember a few years ago, quite a few years ago, Muallim was here, Sheikh Zakzaky was here at the time of Ashura. I took him to one of the mosques, I won't say, one of the our big centers, 10, 20 years ago. And they asked him to say something. And he got up and he said, he talked about all the prophets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, so they will put the deen back on its track. And different time of different prophet, it was pushed off the track by different methodology and different things. Then he argued that what Imam Hussein alayhi salam did was actually a combination of all this, and he put it back. And then he said we need to look how he did it. He didn't come and say I'm the most knowledgeable person, so I better set up a school and universities and start teaching everybody, or I would do teach people how to pray properly and teach them fiqh and so forth. How he did it, he put his neck for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said all those other brothers sitting here and ulama sitting here who think their neck is more valuable than the neck of Imam Hussein, then revalue your position.
We have a conversation, of course it's probably not the last conversation, but at least a conversation which is quite telling about the situation that the Sheikh found himself in prior to the attack on his house, and inshallah we're going to listen to that now.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Ya Sheikh Husseini here from Iran.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
How are you, my brother?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah.
Okay, we heard about the story there. I wanted to know from you what happened.
Okay, right now we are under siege. For the last 12 hours they are shooting. They kill in my house. They have destroyed our Husseinia with the heavy bomb. And then they are now shooting my house. They are shooting the wall right now. They since yesterday in the night around, it is now almost 10 hours, 11 hours to be precise. They came here around 10.
Yes.
started shooting all through the night. Up to now they are shooting.
Where are you now?
I'm inside the house.
So they are shooting at the house that you are staying in.
Yes.
So your life is in danger there.
Well, there is nothing I can do except Allah alone can deliver me, because there is no way out. They have already put the whole house in siege from every corner, and they are shooting.
Inshallah, we will try to do our best there. How many people has been killed? You don't know?
Well, in this house they kill about 114. In the village here they kill everybody there, and we don't know the numbers. And we don't know the number they kill in Hussein, and they took some alive and killed them. They are about 30. By now we don't know whether those they have killed must have passed 50. But they are still shooting.
Yes. Okay. So I will try to get connection with the authorities here in the government and see if we can do anything. Okay. Okay, my brother.
Yeah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Okay. So we will do that. Okay. Inshallah. Okay. Please keep me. Do you have my number there?
Hmm?
Do you have my number there?
Yeah, you showed the number.
Okay. Please keep me informed every hour what's happening. Because I will just report now to the office of leader and also to Dr. Mustafavi and everyone. Okay?
Inshallah.
Salam. Salam.
Shukran.
Salam. Salam.
Ready.
So yes, that was one of the last conversations, as far as we are aware, of Sheikh Zakzaky before he was arrested or detained, whatever the correct terminology would be. This is such a tragic event, and I'm sure you've, of course, abreast of social media, and a lot of people are asking the question as to why there seems to be a blackout. I know I asked you a question along this line at the beginning, but now that you've painted the picture for us of how brutal it was and how people were prepared to sacrifice themselves despite not having any weapons and not fighting back, but literally prepared to give their lives to save their sheikh, it seems extraordinary that something like this event can take place and we don't hear anything about it in most of the media outlets.
Yes, I mean, there is a sort of influence of the Saudi lobby. There is an influence of Zionist lobby. He challenged injustice. He challenged sort of colonialism and the abuse of people. And he sort of always sort of said, he said, you know, in Nigeria we used to have our Qibla used to be Whitehall. And then we changed Qibla and it became White House, you know. And you know, he actually understood and expressed it in such a way people understand. So therefore, most of the world actually thought that he is not like, you know, he's against their interest, you know, because... but having said that, there's a lot of false information and things coming out. And the work that we have done, the pressure that we have put, the enlightening and conversation we have had. For example, BBC has changed its position today and even put link to our pages, because now people see that, you know, their position is untenable, because even the army is changing. Is saying, you know, even if you attack one general doesn't mean you can go and kill 1,000 people. If it's a issue of sort of conflict of traffic, is you can't do this. So these are all being all exposed and so forth. But I think what is important that the message of Zakzaky. Once I remember someone asked him and said, you know, but you are become Shia, and so, you know, the rest of us are Sunni around the world. And what about this Islamic movement now? Is a Shia one? And he said, Islamic movement is not a Shia or Sunni. People follow fiqh in their own life, but movements are not based on that. And it's true. Was the movement of Karbala Shia or Sunni? It was never said that, the Imam Hussein never said, we Shias, you Sunnis are killing us. But that narrative is actually narrative of the enemy, the Saudis, the Takfiris. We should not go down that route, because we stand for justice and we will give our life for justice without becoming an abuser.
Sure. What, as you say, due to the pressure that you have exerted, BBC and the like, inshallah, hopefully when others will follow suit of BBC, can we hope for a day when there will be a full independent inquiry where people will be brought to justice, if really we can ever hope for people to be brought to justice for what crimes have been perpetrated or not?
Well, this was so well organized and so highly, it was not something that it was a rogue general who actually created this. This must have got clearance and is still continuing with what happened today. I don't think this system is going to be able to do it, but the rest of us will be following it, and including some of our friends in Nigeria from the human rights institutions and others. We should not rest until we expose this injustice.
And again, maybe just because I can't get my head around it, what would be the motivation? What would be the ulterior motive for the army? And of course, at this stage anyway, it's difficult to conclude how high up the command came from. But what would motivate them?
I could assure he has come right at the top. This in this level could not happen. You can't go and kill 1,000 people in over 28 hours shooting innocent people without any protection, unless it's come from very high. There was pressure internationally on Nigeria to stop. It didn't. It's even do that today.
There was pressure, on international pressure.
There was international pressure. I know that there was international pressure, and we were coordinating as much pressure.
Could it not be, as an argument to this, as you know, the kind of relationship of the military and the government in Nigeria has always been topsy-turvy, in the sense that sometimes the military have been in power, sometimes been a democratically elected government. Could it be that?
But the military in Nigeria is mostly controlled by Muslims, and now we've got a Muslim presidency. So that conflict sometimes is more so within the Christian sort of presidency, and is not that this couldn't have been done anywhere else. But I think what is, I just remember something when the last time I interviewed one mother who had a shaheed, their daughter. And she said that her daughter, this was on Quds Day, her daughter wore her Eid clothes on Quds Day. And so I told her, it's not Eid, it's a few days time. And she said, if I don't wear it now, I will never wear it. And she went out and became shaheed.
Subhanallah.
It's been said on many occasions that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives insight to people who loves most. And what is important is not to become an oppressor. What is important is to stand up for justice. What is important is to stand up to create a better society, commitment to create a better society, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. And only then you really are a follower of Ahlulbayt, the follower of Prophet ﷺ, and the follower of Islam Muhammadi.
Al-Hajj Masood Chowdhury, thank you very much indeed. Of course, I'm sure this story will continue to rumble on. We will continue, inshallah, to try and find out as much information as we can. Thank you very much for watching, and of course we all pray for the safety.
Can I ask, there is a campaign on our pages and it's going to become more vigorous. Please come and help to campaign for justice for all those in Nigeria. Islamic Human Rights Commission, IHRC.org. www.ihrc.org.
Thank you very much for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.